MIDDLEKAUFF! Hey, hey! Mailbag. Very easily, you go to Apple Podcasts, you leave us a review, 5 stars. Although we got one in here, we got some hate. It's a 4-star, but you know what? We're not going to run from a challenge. But leave us a review, and that's how you get in the Haberman and MIDDLEKAUFF mailbag. We haven't done one in several weeks because once the NFL season starts, it's just content.
We're lovers, not fighters. So, even if you give us 1 star, we'll still probably like you. We'll try to, or pretend to.
We will acknowledge criticism and face it head on.
Agreed.
Also on the YouTube, subscribe and like this video. We're sponsored by Tito's Handmade Vodka. It's that time of the week.
It's water. It's only middle of the day.
Well, we're recording this ahead of time, John. That's why. Right now, if we did a live cut, let's go check in with MIDDLEKAUFF now, it'd be a John Daly.
Yeah, exactly. Saturday. Hopefully you guys are enjoying some college football. To Sunday, tomorrow, NFL football. Tito's, our friends. Can't recommend them enough. Best cocktails going. Just add a little Tito's. A little espresso martini, vodka soda, you name it. John Daly. That's just an Arnold Palmer, but you just put in Tito's. And you're like, oh my God. It's fantastic. It's also one of the easiest drinks to make that just adds immediate punch.
Yep, exactly. And no one says, no, I don't want that. I'll pass. You don't have to ask for orders. If you just handed somebody a John Daly at a party, they would say thank you and enjoy it.
Totally.
Also, DraftKings, new customers can bet $5 on any NFL team to win. So remember this for this weekend, $200 in free bets if your team wins. Just sign up with the code HAM. Plus, you get the stepped up same game parlays. For every leg you add, you can boost your winnings 100%. DraftKings, go get it.
Yep. Download the app, promo code HAM. Easy to use. Do it.
Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. All right, mailbag, John. Let's start with a thing that wasn't a mailbag, but just a quote from our guy, Oakland A retiree Stephen Vogt. His quote when he retired: "I've been one of the best players in the league. I've been one of the worst players in the league." He looked like maybe he'd have to retire injured several years ago. Came back again. We've gone back to the beginning with Stephen Vogt. We're big fans. Congrats on a great career to him. He once sang on our show. He's just been an all-around great guy to us.
He once, I don't know if it's quite a forgettable year. It had to be a pretty cool year for him. The year he played with the Giants, and Bruce Bochy clearly loved him. Do you remember he had a pitch hit home run, I think, in like the 9th inning, or was it the 10th inning? Remember a walk-off home run for the Giants? Do you remember that?
Was that the day we interviewed him?
No, this is after we were done with radio. This is, when he played for the San Francisco Giants.
Got it.
And like, I think it was 18 or 19. I just remember him like crying after the game. It was a cool moment.
Yeah. I'll always remember the fact that he started his big league career 0 for 32, then had to wait like a year and a half to get called back up by the A's. And eventually his first big league hit was a pinch hit home run. Actually, I was there for it. And I remember thinking this guy's going to get sent down. He'll never get a hit. He'll be like Moonlight Graham and Field of Dreams. It'll be sad. And then he had like a 10-year career. And then he got a game-winning hit for the A's in the playoffs against the Tigers. I remember that. I was there the other day when he got a pinch hit, game-tying home run against the Yankees in front of a packed house. Won a World Series with the Braves. Thought his career might be over with the Brewers when he got an injury, and he just kept coming back. Incredible career.
2019, he was on the Giants. So it was Bochy's last year. I remember. It was just cool.
I don't remember
childhood
the name,
team.
I got to go
walk off bomb.
Congrats, voter. Great guy. We love him. All right, John, here we go. Mailbag time. First up from 208 Sparty. Your thoughts on trading Lance next offseason? Ooh. Side note, I'm a huge Boise State fan and a resident of Boise. I have to tell you, UC Davis coaching magic isn't working up here with Tim Plow. The offense has been a disaster. Do you guys have any insight on him?
Never heard of them, to be honest with you. But they love going back to that well. No one loves going to the well quite like Boise.
My question is about the possibility of the Niners trading Trey Lance. Seems like a lot of people think you guys are negative about him, but I agree with your take. Think of it this way. If you were dropped on Earth today and didn't know anything about his promise, height, potential, and you had to research on how his first 2 years in the league have gone, you'd say it's been a disaster. Unless Jimmy suffers a significant injury, don't hold your breath. I don't know why you wouldn't hold your breath on that. I don't see the Niners handing Lance the job back in 23 because the same concerns are going to be there from the team. I know the Niners wouldn't get anything close to back to what they gave up in value, and they'd be admitting they made a mistake. What do you think? Keep up the good work. Go Tito's. Signed, Sparty.
I think if they have the same outcome as last year, a playoff team are competitive in the playoffs, I'm hard pressed to see him handed the job again like he was this year. Now, it's not,
especially if Garoppolo's healthy for the whole season.
yeah, Garoppolo's healthy. Now, the hard part is Garoppolo is a free agent. So that's a variable that they don't control. Like ultimately, they controlled Garoppolo. Hell, they were so adamant that they could have made him the backup quarterback at $26 million. That is not, if Garoppolo is good again and healthy, he is going to have more options. Because what was the story this week? The Commanders were going to trade for him before they got Carson, right?
Surgery, they didn't get him.
So there's 100% a couple teams would be interested in Jimmy G if he's healthy at the end of the season.
I also think if the Niners promised him he were the starting quarterback coming back, he'd re-sign with the Niners.
I agree. But if he re-signs with the Niners, he's not re-signing to compete, is he? He's the starting quarterback.
No, but I also think if he played a healthy season and had success and they brought him back, I think you'd be playing with fire if you just thought he'll be healthy again the next year. I don't see a scenario where you trade Trey Lance.
You'd rather Trey Lance is the more highly drafted Jordan Love?
Yeah. I mean, because you're not going to get value for him, so why not keep him around, keep trying to develop him? Jimmy might get hurt. Trey might take over. Stranger things have happened. This has been crazy enough. They held on to Jimmy all this time, and it worked out for them. So why not hold on to Trey all the time you have with him? He's cheap, and see if it works out for you again that way. Again, we haven't even reached that point yet, but
we've played three
Jimmy
quarters.
Still has to survive this season and win games. That's a double
survive this season. I mean, can he survive a month?
A week. I mean, if you told me Brock Purdy's starting next week, I'd go, yeah, well.
I saw a headline today, Brock Purdy.
Because
I have to really stay focused. I'm one snap away.
Well, it's true.
It's like, Jesus, he's right.
The history tells us he's not wrong. Next up, John, this is from B. Rush, longtime listener, 5-star pod. The Russell Wilson conversation you guys have had recently have been great. Finally, someone who sees how phony, inauthentic the guy is. Although I think everyone has joined that party. It seems like an actor playing the role of Russell Wilson, and the real Russell Wilson is somewhere else. Would you guys be able to interview an ex-teammate, coach, coordinator, etc., so we can get more stories on this strange human? Keep it up, guys. Tito's country. Let's ride. And Tito's is getting 2 shout-outs. I reached out through an intermediary to Doug Baldwin recently. Have not heard back from Doug on that. But I did get a buddy of mine who listens to the show called me the other day and said, I'm loving all the Russell Wilson stories that you guys hear. Somebody DM'd us a Russell story that I relayed. So if you guys, Seattle natives, residents, have any stories, I heard one. Here's another one for you. I heard that somebody one time saw, these stories are all so small and stupid, that somebody saw a big black tinted out like suburban Escalade pull up to a McDonald's drive-thru. A bodyguard gets out of the driver's seat, comes over, opens the passenger seat. Sierra gets out. Sierra then walks up to the microphone and she says the drive-thru order into the microphone and then gets back into the passenger side. But the bodyguard came and opened the door for her so she could get out and say the order into the drive-thru window order speaker.
Was the bodyguard driving or was Russell driving?
Bodyguard was driving. He gets out of the car. He pulls up to the drive-thru, gets out of the car, opens her door. She gets out of the car, goes up and makes the order, and then presumably the bodyguard opens her door back up.
Not going to defend, but we've all been in situations either with our parents, our wives, girlfriends, brothers, complicated orders sometimes at specific places. So there's been a lot of arguments.
It's a bad story. I'm just saying it's a weird story.
Been a lot of arguments in that specific instance.
Yeah.
Though the outcome of the arguments is the dude in the driver's side, or at worst, the guy in the driver's side second row of seats makes the order. You don't ever get out and make the order. No, that's not allowed.
I think the real headline of the story is the security guard opens the door, comes around the car to open the door.
Good. Yeah. She's allowed to be held like Mariah Carey diva, right? Okay. I mean,
yeah.
If that would have been Russell, that would have been insane. Now, he might tell you I would never eat McDonald's, right?
Well, have you watched Russ lately?
It's true.
All right, next up from Pete.
To me, I would really quick on the Russell. I watched a decent amount of just Richard and KJ Wright. Pretty good. I mean, a lot of Pete Russell. Like, if you're a Seattle fan or now a Bronco fan, want to hear about Russ, like they kind of dive a lot of nerding out on just that kind of era.
Challenge stories like pulling the curtain back.
Yeah. How, Russell used to kind of had his, what stroke. Well, they were getting screamed at. It's like, well, he's just the young quarterback. And Richard's whole thing is like, he's a year younger than us. Like, we were drafted last year. He was drafted this year.
When we were golfing the other day, didn't you tell me some weird Russ story that didn't even sound true when you said it out loud?
Yeah.
That he had his own shower or something? That can't be true.
Someone DM me that. I have not seen that anywhere credible on the internet. That his
just
shower
right now.
in the Broncos facility is like right next to General Patton's. It's not with the teams. I feel like that would have got out and about, don't you?
Yeah, like Russ would. Richard would have just said that, Sherman, if that were true.
But maybe he wouldn't have known. But it feels like a teammate would have been like,
Why
"What
would
the
he
fuck's
not know?
going
Sherman
on?"
would know that.
No, I'm talking, but in Denver right now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm saying in his shower in Denver. Seattle showered with the normals. I don't know, his teammates.
Norman.
This in Denver, he has a shower. Again, one DM, not credible that I know of, but it's understandable that possibly he was given this
to me,
special
it's not
shower.
crazy. The nakeds and the nudes, if they just have extra private showers, if there just is one, like, yeah, Russ, you can have the private shower. If no one else is using it,
my thing would be like everyone else,
Hackett showers with the team.
Yeah, does like Brady and Peyton
Russ
Manning get naked
shower.
with the team? If Peyton Manning and Tom Brady get naked with the team, like you got to get naked with. Does Aaron Rodgers get naked with the team and shower with the team? Then you got to shower with the team, right?
Next up from Pete, he said to me the most. Yes, but sorry, I shouldn't have ignored your question. Yes. Next up from Pete, to me the most depressing thing about Trey Lance is that he doesn't even have the upside of the traits of a star, at least in my opinion. If you're trading 3 1s and taking a guy third overall, there should be star potential. Not saying he can't be a good player, but I don't see it. And that's not even factoring in that he's not very good while the team has Super Bowl contention. I'm not going to agree with that. I think it's a little bit of a stretch. No one would have said. There's a lot of quarterbacks who, basically, what we're saying is anyone that doesn't throw it like Josh Allen or run like Justin Herbert doesn't have star potential, and that's not true.
I do believe that over the last, honestly, since like Mahomes and Josh Allen, that people have taken swings for the fences and they've come back like double aces. You just dominated and take all the money from Las Vegas. And it's like, that's what they try to do here, because you would say historically, Kaepernick, for example, just what he had going for him, even though he was a raw passer in 2022, if Colin Kaepernick existed now at Nevada and was running like that size, throwing like that, 4.0 student, does Kaepernick go drafted in the top 5?
Yeah.
So the inflation on quarterbacks, mainly because of Mahomes and Josh Allen, historically, Trey Lance would probably never have sniffed the top 10 given his history. But because of where we're at with a couple of guys that just became flat out superstars, teams were more willing to swing for the fences on a enormous unknown. He had barely played. Again, I'm not acting like I didn't support it and wouldn't have done it, but it is the reason that, like, for the history of the NFL, it's like we need multiple years of you starting, more data, see you play. Our scouts, people go see you play live. Like, this guy came out of nowhere. And who comes out of nowhere now? Even Josh Allen. Josh Allen did not come out of nowhere. Remember his last year, Elway was seeing him, like all these GMs were seeing him, like he was on the radar. This guy was radarless, and then all of a sudden, he got a bunch of hype. And I don't blame the hype for coming, but a lot of times we equate hype with just like, oh, this is going to work. And you've said it forever, and I just think a lot of us don't think like this. Like, a lot of people do not. The hype doesn't turn into Josh Allen.
Yeah,
hell, doesn't turn into Kirk Cousins, right? Like Baker Mayfield. More than likely, Baker Mayfield, is he a backup in 2 years?
Yeah.
It's Sam Darnold's never a starter again, right?
Nope.
That was a 1 in the 3rd pick from Oklahoma and USC 4 years ago. It's like, yeah, they're both backups. Sam for sure. I mean, Baker might get a shot after this year to compete, but it's like kind of over, guys.
Yeah.
That was pretty fast. Guy was the number 1 overall pick. By his 4th year guy, they couldn't trade him for anything more than a 5th round pick and a pay cut.
Partly personality based, but
if his talent was good, would anyone have cared?
No. This one's actually an older comment, but it deserves to be read. It's from September 9th. It's from Bad Boy Phil. He says, "What's up, guys? Everyone is sleeping on the Bears. Good coaching staff. Lynch and Shanahan will rue the day they passed on Fields. Definite homer pick by you guys going Niners -7. Bears cover. I'm sorry, boys, but I think Lance is going to stink. Niners by 3. So Phil put that one on paper. So we got to give Phil his.
So he didn't like the Bears to win. He just liked the Bears to cover.
No, but he said you guys Bears cover. I'm sorry. I think Lance is going to stink. That's what he said. I don't agree necessarily with the Fields thing, but we'll see. I don't feel.
If we could redo this season and start week 1, I think our philosophy, until we have the data of who's really good and who's really bad, would probably just be like, who do we think is the best value week 1, instead of just taking a huge line. Like that is pretty risky.
If we easy to say now, but at the time, who looked like the best value?
I'm just saying, like, you could have looked.
The Niners were the biggest line, so it wasn't them.
But there are things like the Lions at home were like +6 against the Eagle. Just something that, like, that's just a good gambling value.
You're saying a road team favored by 7's just straight up bad value.
Yeah,
that's true. But they should have anyway. All right, John. Finally,
but they lost by 9.
I know. Could have been 11. Should have been 11. Finally, this is from C-Dog, who gives us 4 stars. A few years ago, this was 2 men giving sports takes. Now it's devolved into 2 49ers groupies. I bet, according to them, all humanity sprung from a single grain of sand in the Bay Area. John isn't religious, but he found God in Shanahan. Because of the mental gymnastics he goes through to defend a below 500 coach would make a priest proud. Guy compares Kelce, who has more receiving yards than any other human in the NFL over the past 8 years, with 2 separate quarterbacks, to Kittle. Shake my head. Their defense is always... Kelce said 2 days ago, Kittle's the best tight end in the league. Their defense is always, it's where the money is. Well, congrats. You're a politician. Gentlemen, since the NFC has basically become peewee football compared to the AFC, can the NFL realign the playoffs and only hold the top 14 teams? College sports realigns daily, so I don't know why the NFL stands pat. It's still a solid pod with great energy and conversation. Just West Coast bias fills too many minutes. C-Dog, 4 stars.
I would say if we spoke about the 49ers like we did and they didn't have the substance behind them of 4 playoff wins in the last 3 years, I think sometimes when we get in these arguments about Shanahan, and I posted this because when I was watching Richard Sherman and KJ Wright, who, to me, KJ was a key piece for the decade of kicking ass and taking names for Seattle. And when Richard asked him about the best offenses you faced, I don't know, over the last 10 years, being one of the stalwarts of the Seattle defense, he immediately said Andy Reid and Kyle Shanahan. That's his opinion. And Kyle Shanahan last year as enormous favorites. I think first week against Dallas, they were 5.5 points. And by the second week, it was like 6.5, 7 points. And even you and I thought, like, they're going to fucking lose this game. And they won. Like, they won. The second round of the playoffs. Not just random big games in the regular season. Playoff games. 4 playoff victories. If he didn't have that, I would not hold him to the same esteem. But I've watched him 4 playoff victories. Those 2 years, the first 19 favored in those games. This year, I'm sorry, his status in the way I look at him went up exponentially when he's a favorite on the road back-to-back games and wins. Like, that's Tom Coughlin, Eli. Like, why did they become legendary status? You win games. No one thinks you're going to win. Like, isn't that sports? Like, you become highly thought of when it's like, we went into it. Like, ultimately, the Warriors, like, they got credit last year just because they won again, not because they were favorites. They were really good, maybe early in the season, but by the time they get to the playoffs, like, yeah, Steph could win the whole thing. But if the Celtics had beat the Warriors, they would have became legends. Why? Because they beat the fucking Warriors. The 49ers, the MVP of the league in Lambeau, they can't score an offensive touchdown. They win the game. Like, that's Kyle Shanahan has been very, very impressive. Is he flawed? Is he perfect? Of course. Andy Reid, looking back.
Of course he's flawed, or of course he's perfect?
I'm saying, of course, he's not perfect, and there's some flaws on a given. Like, looking back, would you say that Andy Reid's time in Kansas City has made his Eagles time probably age a little bit better? That, like, he probably took unfair shit.
Without question.
I just think you nitpick. Like, who we don't really nitpick are the shitty coaches. Like, yeah, this guy sucks, fire him, whatever. We do nitpick the high-end guys. Like, ultimately, McCarthy, I think he's pretty average. I'd say you do. Most people do. He has won a lot. Even last year, he didn't win 12 games and was hosting a playoff game. Well, he's not probably the village idiot we make him out to be, but he is part of the reason he gets criticized, right? Because his resume and his wins, like, he's up there with the top dogs, even though we don't view him that way. But, like, last year he was 12-5.
I think part of the reason too, it's like you had Aaron and you couldn't do what was necessary to make that work for yourself.
But then he'd say, hey, look at Boy Wonder that everyone's blowing. I mean, it's not like they're rattling off Super Bowls.
No, I mean, Aaron won 2 MVPs, though. But no, it's true.
I think he won 2 with
adapted to Aaron.
McCarthy. I think he's got 4.
I'm just saying he adapted and made Aaron great again.
I agree. But I'm just saying, like, you can nitpick coaches unless you're Belichick. It's like, well, 6 rings. But even now, people are like, look at him without Tom. You know,
Yeah.
part of the way we talk about sports.
So, look, I guess I've said Kittle's better than Kelce. I probably did pick that at some point or another. I have no problem making that argument, but I have no problem with somebody who says Kelce's better than Kittle. None, especially the more George gets hurt and the more Kelce dominates. Kelce did on his podcast with his brother the other day say, Jason and Travis have a podcast together. And Jason was like, Kittle blocks too much. Like he doesn't get enough credit. But Travis wasn't going to say himself. He said Kittle, but whatever. I mean, I don't,
not to toot my own horn.
I don't think that's some great flaw that I have, but maybe I'll look in the mirror on that one.
Last year, Coward goes, I need an NFL player that's like can kind of go Draymond-y, be like talk some shit, be famous. And I'm like, I don't know if these guys would do it, but I would look into the Kelce brothers having a podcast. And then I just saw they have a podcast now. Like, did they know that I was like, you guys should just start a podcast?
Good call.
2 guys, really good. Now, he ended up getting Richard Sherman.
We should have put them on the Ham Podcast Network.
I guess clearly, yeah. I mean, I just think they went on their own network. I just think they started a podcast.
What all those guys should do.
Yeah, they do it every Tuesday. Not that great, actually. But
oh, really?
Well, I watched like 1 minute
Most
on
podcasts
YouTube.
Aren't. Personal opinion. AFC. So here's the other thing. I think we've talked for a year. Like there was a time when the NFC West we thought was going to be the primo, but we've been talking for months that the AFC actually goes back to last year, that it's easier. Last year was easier to make the playoffs in the NFC than it was in the AFC.
Can I pump the brakes a little bit? The Titans were the 1 seed last year. The Bengals went to the Super Bowl. Like, let's not act like Tom and Peyton are fucking at the top right now in the AFC.
No, I agree. I just think last year it was better teams got left out of the playoffs in the AFC than in the NFC, was what I made that statement based on. That the Chargers with Herbert over 500 got left out, whereas the teams that just missed the playoffs in the NFC were the Saints and the Vikings and the football team. The NFC was like Baltimore down under 500 by a game out, Indy out, Miami not terrible out. So,
yeah,
beat New England twice and got left out of the playoffs.
But isn't this the argument? Like isn't the most important thing in college, in the pros, the top?
Yeah, yes. Although I think as it relates to the NFL, making the playoffs is such a line of delineation, and it's harder to make the playoffs in the AFC last year, and looks like it might be harder this year. We'll see, but maybe not. Maybe Tennessee's division's going to suck, and they're going to be in. So, yeah, I think the NFC. But again, who's got the more high-end talent this year? Maybe it's split. I don't know. But Buffalo and Kansas City right now should be probably 1-2 in your power rankings.
They'd be up there. And the Chargers, I mean, if they're healthy, feel like they're pretty good, right?
Yeah. And look, I mean, we don't politicians.
I thought
this is not a passion project. Like we spend a lot of hours and a lot of time doing this, putting it together, selling advertisements, promoting it, planning it, recording it. So we don't apologize for wanting to make money doing it.
I would also say politicians, when I call someone a politician, or you do, or we're called here, to me that insinuates the person is just full of shit and lying, right? They say one thing even though they mean something else. Like I say one thing.
I'm in it for the people, but you're in it for the power and the money.
Exactly. Everything we say at the time in which we say it, I believe it, you believe it. And I think that's the thing that has separated in moving forward in this business is why individual content creators have been able to separate. One, they've been able to finance themselves through advertisers, and advertisers come to them. But that's because they've been able to develop audiences because of authenticity. Feels like, when this guy says something, now you might not agree with them, but when you turn on television, Stephen A. it feels like they're just making shit up because that's what they think people want to hear or for the sake of arguments. And that to me is where all the independent guys have dominated because that's actually what the consumer, demands. I would say I'm offended by being called a politician because I just say what I actually believe at the time. It doesn't mean it's right.
And I refuse to be offended.
Yeah.
I refuse.
I would get, if someone ever called me a politician, that's a low blow to me. Would you not be offended by being called a politician? Because it's basically saying you're just full
I mean,
of
I
shit.
would be, but I also would then remember that my personal, one of my core, if I had like a core, like 2-3 personal mantras, one is I refuse to be offended. I just refuse. Too many people are offended. I refuse to be offended.
I struggle with that. I get offended every day.
It doesn't mean I can't be offended, but then I think like it's not worth, maybe that's the better way to put it. Like that's offensive. You could be like, that's offensive, but then you should choose to refuse. To lose. Fuck them 22s.
Yeah, true.
All right. Thanks for hanging, everybody. Good mailbag.
talk.
See you
Later.
Sunday night.